Welcome to CARICOMP Insider, where high-tech facial recognition meets real-world intelligence. What if the biggest legal threat to facial recognition isn't the technology itself, but a simple misunderstanding about how it's used? Right now, regulators are cracking down hard on face search tools. But investigators doing careful, case-specific facial comparison are getting caught in the crossfire. And most of them don't even realize it. If you've ever compared two photos side by side to confirm someone's identity, this matters to you. If you work in law enforcement, digital forensics, or security, it matters even more. Because the legal world is drawing a sharp line between two very different activities. And if you're on the wrong side of that line without documentation, you could lose your case, or worse, face legal exposure that was never meant for you. So what's the actual difference? Let's start with what regulators are really targeting. Laws like Illinois' Biometric Privacy Act and the EU's data protection rules focus on one specific behavior: bulk harvesting of faces from public sources without consent to build massive searchable databases. Think of it like the difference between a librarian pulling a specific book off a shelf and someone photocopying every book in every library without asking. The trigger isn't comparing two photos. It's the mass collection and indexing. For investigators, that distinction is everything. So why does this keep getting confused? Because people lump two things together that are fundamentally different. Face search means querying an unknown face against a database of millions. That's one-to-many matching. Facial comparison means an analyst looks at images already in a case file, one-to-one or one-to-few. Think of it like the difference between running a fingerprint through a national database versus holding two prints side by side under a magnifying glass. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, actually publishes separate evaluation frameworks for each one. They've said explicitly that the accuracy demands and error consequences are fundamentally different. Mixing them up isn't just sloppy language. It's a scientific error. Now, here's where it gets practical. Defense attorneys have caught on. They're filing motions that don't challenge what facial evidence shows, they challenge how it was generated. Investigators without documented methodology are becoming easy targets, even when their conclusion is correct. Over a dozen U.S. states have passed or are advancing biometric privacy laws. And most of those laws hinge on the purpose and scope of how data was processed. That means an investigator who documents a contained, case-specific method sits in completely different legal territory than a platform indexing millions of faces. But here's what most people miss. The answer to increasing legal scrutiny isn't to avoid facial analysis. It's to document it with rigor. The moment you can articulate what images you compared, why you compared them, what framework you used, and what the output means, you've turned a visual observation into a defensible forensic act. So here's the bottom line. Regulators aren't coming after careful, documented facial comparison. They're coming after mass face scraping without consent. But if you can't prove which one you did, you inherit the legal risk of both. Something worth thinking about next time you include facial evidence in a report. The difference between "I noticed they looked alike" and a documented forensic comparison. That's the difference between evidence that gets challenged and evidence that gets admitted. Now you know something most people in this industry don't. Use it. And when you're ready to put it to work, caricomp.com. We'll see you tomorrow.